The war was over. At least, that's what humanity believed. For months, the galaxy had burned. Unknown alien forces, vast, silent, unstoppable, had swept through star systems, erasing entire civilizations. But in one final, desperate battle, the human alliance had pushed them back into the darkness. Victory was declared. Fleets returned home. And slowly, life began to feel normal again. But Admiral Kale Varon never trusted that silence. It's too clean, he had warned countless times. Enemies like that don't just disappear. No one listened. Until the night, everything changed. Inside Earth's orbital command, operations were routine. Patrol ships moved along their routes. Trade vessels crossed safe corridors. Signals flowed like always. Peace. Artificial but convincing. Sir, a young officer called out, breaking the calm. We're detecting an anomaly in the outer rim. Kale didn't look surprised. Where exactly? Near the dead zone, sir. That got his attention. The dead zone was a region of space where no signal had ever returned after the war. Entire fleets had gone in and never came back. Put on the main screen. The display flickered. At first, there was nothing. Just darkness. Endless empty space. Then, a single light appeared. Then another. Then dozens. Then thousands. Ships, someone whispered. Kale stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. How many? The officer hesitated. We can't count them, sir. Before anyone could react, every system in the command center glitched. Lights dimmed. Screens flickered. And then, a signal forced its way through every channel. No translation. No language. Yet somehow, everyone understood it. We remember. The room fell silent. Kale exhaled slowly. They're back. Suddenly, alarms erupted across the station. Orbital defenses going offline. Satellite grid collapsing. We're losing control of the system. Kale snapped into command mode instantly. All fleets, battle stations. This is not a drill. But it was already too late. From the darkness beyond the outer rim, something massive emerged. A structure larger than any fleet humanity had ever built. Its surface wasn't metal. It moved, shifted, pulsed like a living entity. And behind it, endless rows of warships followed. An empire. Then a second message came through. This time, clear. Cold. Deliberate. You push US back. Now we erase you. Before anyone could respond, they fired. A wave of dark energy swept across Earth's orbit. Defense stations vanished. Ships disintegrated. Entire fleets were erased in seconds. Not destroyed. Erased. Inside the command center, no one spoke. They just watched. Helpless, Kale stared at the burning orbit of Earth. This wasn't a victory, he said quietly. It was a warning. And now, that warning had become a war. Far beyond human space. Something ancient began to awaken. Watching. Waiting. Because this time, the Empire wasn't just attacking. It was finishing what it started. Earth didn't fall in a single moment. It fell piece by piece. From the command deck, Admiral Kale Varon watched the impossible unfold. Status, he barked. Orbital defense grid, offline. Fleet command, non-responsive. Satellite network collapsing across all sectors. Every system that had protected Earth for decades was failing in seconds. Redirect power to primary cannons. Kale ordered. Sir, they're not responding. Manual override. No control. Sir, something's blocking the signal. Kale clenched his jaw. This wasn't just an attack. It was domination. Outside, the battle had already been decided. Human warships launched everything they had, missiles, plasma cannons, railguns, but none of it mattered. The Empire's ships didn't dodge. They didn't retreat. They didn't even react. They absorbed it. Direct hits confirmed, an officer shouted. For a moment, hope flickered, then vanished. The alien ships changed. Their surfaces rippled, adapting instantly. Energy shields reshaped, growing stronger with every impact. They're learning from our attacks, someone whispered. Before Kale could respond, the Empire fired again. A single beam of black energy cut across orbit. It touched a human battleship, and the ship disappeared. Not exploded. Not damaged. Gone. What was that? An officer said, voice trembling. Cale didn't answer, because deep down, he already knew. They're not destroying matter, he said slowly. They're removing it. Panic spread across the command room. That's impossible. Nothing can just erase. Another beam fired. Another ship vanished. Now there was no doubt. This wasn't war. This was execution. Sir, the scanner officer shouted. Massive formation moving toward Earth. Main fleet advancing. The screen zoomed out, and what it revealed froze everyone. The Empire fleet wasn't just large. It was endless. Ships stretching across space like a wall, blocking out the stars. Thousands. No, millions. We can't stop that, someone said under their breath. Cale stepped forward. We don't need to stop them. The room turned to him. We need to buy time. For what? An officer asked. Cale hesitated, then said the one thing no one expected. For something worse. Before anyone could question him, a new signal broke through the chaos. Different from the Empire. Different from anything human. Unknown transmission detected. Origin, deep space. Beyond the outer rim. Put it through. The screen flickered. A symbol appeared. Cold. Geometric. Glowing faint blue. Then a voice. Calm. Precise. Humanity, you survived longer than expected. Cale stepped closer. Who is this? A pause. We are not your enemy. The room fell silent. Cale narrowed his eyes. Then prove it. Outside, the Empire fleet moved closer to Earth. The final strike was seconds away. And then, space behind them tore open. A new fleet emerged. Sleek, sharp, silent, and without hesitation, they opened fire. The first Empire ships exploded. Cale whispered, what had we just stepped into? Because this war was no longer just about survival. It was about something far bigger. The first Empire ship exploded, and for a single impossible moment, humanity saw hope. Direct hit confirmed, an officer shouted. Cheers almost broke out across the command deck, but Admiral Cale Varon didn't move. He was watching the new fleet, studying it. They didn't hesitate. Cale said quietly, no warning, no communication, straight to attack. Sir, they just saved us, the officer replied. Cale shook his head. No, they interrupted our execution. Outside, the battlefield shifted instantly. The mysterious blue fleet moved with perfect precision. Formations tightening, ships aligning like a single mind. Beams of concentrated energy fired in synchronized bursts, cutting through the Empire's front lines. For the first time since the invasion began, the Empire was being pushed back. Multiple Empire vessels destroyed. They're retreating from the outer perimeter. We're seeing actual damage. The room filled with disbelief. They can be beaten, someone whispered. But Cale didn't look convinced. Watch carefully, he said. The Empire fleet stopped advancing, not retreating, stopping. Then, as if responding to an invisible command, their ships began to change. What are they doing? An officer asked. On screen, the massive alien vessels shifted and fused together, merging into larger, more complex structures. Their surfaces hardened, glowing faintly as if reinforcing themselves. They're adapting, Cale said. Again. The blue fleet fired another coordinated volley. This time, the Empire's ships didn't break. Instead, the energy dissipated across their surfaces. Absorbed. Neutralized. They just countered it, the scanner officer said, stunned. Then the Empire responded. A wave of dark energy surged outward, faster than anything before. 3 ships from the blue fleet were hit. Gone. Instantly, the formation broke slightly. Not in panic, but in recalculation. Cale leaned forward. They're not invincible either. The command room fell quiet as both alien forces adjusted. 2 unknown empires. 2 unimaginable powers. Fighting above Earth. And humanity was trapped in the middle. Sir, the communications officer said suddenly, incoming transmission from the blue fleet. Put it through. The symbol appeared again. That same cold, geometric shape. Then the voice. Calm. Controlled. You are observing an escalation. Kale crosses arms. Who are you? A brief pause. We are the Containment Authority. The words meant nothing, but the tone said everything. Containment of what? Kale asked. Silence. Then, of them. On screen, the Empire fleet expanded again, growing, multiplying, more ships emerging from the darkness behind them. They're not just a fleet, Kale whispered. They're an entire civilization. The voice continued. They do not conquer. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. Kale's expression hardened. Then why are they here? The answer came without hesitation. Because you survived. Silence hit the room like a shockwave. Before Kale could respond, alarm screamed again. Massive energy spike detected. Where? From the center of the Empire formation. On screen, a colossal structure began to form, larger than anything seen before. Size! Kale demanded. Off the charts. The voice returned. For the first time, there was urgency in it. Fall back. Kale didn't move. Why? A pause. Because it has arrived. The massive structure opened, and something inside moved. The massive structure at the center of the Empire formation began to open, not like a ship, not like a weapon, like something alive. Across every screen in Orbital Command, the image distorted as if reality itself was struggling to display what was happening. Stabilize the feed. Admiral Kale Veron ordered. We're trying, sir. It's interfering with all sensors. The structure split apart in layers, revealing a core of pure darkness. Not empty space. Something deeper. Something that seemed to absorb light itself. And then, an eye opened. It was enormous, burning with cold, white energy. And the moment it did, everything changed. Energy readings spiking. Gravitational distortions increasing. Ships are losing control. Outside both fleets, Empire and Containment staggered. Even the perfectly coordinated Blue Fleet broke formation for the first time. What is that thing? An officer whispered. The voice from the Blue Fleet returned immediately. For the first time, it sounded strained. That is not a weapon. A pause. That is their Emperor. Silence filled the room. Kale stepped forward slowly. An Emperor doesn't enter the battlefield, he said. He commands it. The voice replied. This one is the battlefield. As if to prove the point, the Emperor moved. Not forward, not physically. Reality around it shifted. Ships closest to it began to bend, metal twisting, collapsing inward without any visible force. Entire vessels folded into themselves and vanished. No impact, no weapons, the scanner officer said, horrified. It's just happening. The Emperor didn't attack. It existed, and existence itself became destruction. The containment fleet fired everything it had. Beams of blue energy, concentrated strikes, coordinated volleys, all aimed directly at the Emperor. For a moment, it looked like it worked. The darkness around the entity flickered. Its eye dimmed slightly. Direct hits confirmed. Energy drop detected. Hope surged again. Then, the Emperor blinked. Every beam stopped mid-space. Frozen. What? Kale whispered. Then instantly, the beams reversed. The energy turned back toward the containment fleet. No! A chain reaction of explosions tore through their formation. Dozens of ships gone in seconds. The Emperor hadn't just blocked the attack. It had used it. Kale felt a chill run down his spine. This isn't a war machine. It's intelligence. The voice returned again, weaker now. We underestimated it. Kale clenched his fists. You said you contained them. Silence. Then the truth. We delayed them. The Emperor turned its gaze. Not at the Blue Fleet. Not at the remaining human forces. At Earth. Sir, an officer whispered. It's locking onto the planet. Kale's heart dropped. Shields. Useless. Evacuation? Too late. The Emperor's eye glowed brighter. The final strike was coming. But just before it fired, something else appeared. Not from space. From below. Deep beneath Earth's surface. Something ancient began to awaken. The planet trembled. And for the first time, the Emperor hesitated. Kale looked down at the shaking earth, then back at the screen. What, did we just wake up? The ground didn't just shake. It resisted. Across Earth, seismic readings went beyond measurable limits. Cities trembled, oceans surged, and fault lines split open as if the planet itself was trying to break free from something buried deep within. Inside Orbital Command, alarms screamed without pause. Global tectonic instability detected. Magnitude levels off the charts. This isn't natural. This isn't even possible. Admiral Kale Varon didn't look at the data. He looked at the sky, at the Emperor. For the first time since its arrival, it wasn't attacking. It was watching. Sir, an officer whispered, barely able to speak, the Emperor has stopped its advance. Kale's eyes narrowed. Why? Before anyone could answer, the Earth cracked. A massive rupture tore across the planet's surface, stretching for miles. Not from impact, not from attack. From inside. Zoom into the epicenter. Kale ordered. The screen shifted. What they saw silenced the room. Deep within the rupture, far below the crust, something glowed. Not lava, not energy. Something structured, something artificial. It's a construct, a scientist said in disbelief. But that's impossible. Nothing like this was ever detected. The glow intensified. Then, the surface split wider. A colossal shape began to rise. At first, it looked like metal, ancient, worn, covered in layers of rock and ice. But then it moved. Sir, the scanner officer whispered, it's alive. The massive structure pushed upward, breaking through continents, oceans, everything in its path. Mountains collapsed around it as it emerged. And as it rose higher, its shape became clear. A giant form, humanoid, titanic, scale. Kale demanded. Larger than the Empire's Emperor. Silence. The being stood fully revealed now, towering into the atmosphere, its surface glowing with faint blue lines, like energy flowing beneath ancient armor. At its center, a core pulsed. Then its eyes opened. Not one, two. And the moment they did, every system on Earth shut down. Total silence. Then it spoke, not through speakers, not through signals, through existence itself. You were not meant to return. Every human heard it, felt it, understood it. Above Earth, the Emperor reacted. Its eye narrowed, its form shifted. For the first time, the unstoppable force showed awareness of something equal. The voice from the containment fleet returned, weak and fading. The core, a pause. It was never supposed to activate. Kale stepped forward slowly. What is that thing? Silence. Then, it is a fail-safe. Another pause. For them. Kale's heart sank. Not for us. The answer came quietly. No. Above. The Emperor expanded its form, darkness spreading outward. Below. The core entity raised its massive arm. Energy surged across its body. Two ancient forces. Both beyond comprehension. Both capable of ending everything. And Earth stood between them. Kale whispered, this isn't our war anymore. Then he looked at the remaining human fleet. But we're still in it. And above Earth, the next phase began. The moment the core entity moved, space reacted. Not with sound, not with force, but with resistance. Above Earth, the Emperor expanded, its massive presence distorting everything around it. Darkness spread outward like a living storm, swallowing light, bending gravity, twisting space into something unnatural. Below, the core entity stood firm, unmoving, unshaken, energy levels rising on both sides. An officer shouted inside Orbital Command, readings are exceeding all known limits. They're going to collide. Kale Varon didn't look away. Then we watch, he said quietly, because we may never get another chance. The Emperor struck first. A wave of pure void energy surged downward, faster than light, aimed directly at the core entity. It wasn't an attack. It was erasure. For a fraction of a second, everything went dark. Then, the core entity raised its hand. The void wave stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Frozen in space. Held inches away from the planet. Gasps filled the command room. That's impossible. The core entity clenched its hand. The dark energy collapsed inward and vanished, neutralized. For the first time since the war began, something had resisted the Emperor. Above, the Emperor's eye burned brighter. It responded instantly. Space around it shattered, splitting into fractures like broken glass. From those fractures, streams of condensed energy burst outward, multiple attacks at once, targeting every angle, every weakness. The core entity moved, and when it did, the entire planet shook. It stepped forward, not fast, not aggressive, but unstoppable. Each step cracked the surface beneath it, sending shock waves across continents. Oceans surged. Storms formed instantly. Then it struck back. A beam of pure energy erupted from its core, cutting through the sky and slamming directly into the Emperor. The impact lit up space like a star being born. "Direct hit," someone shouted. Energy drop detected in the Emperor. For the first time, the Emperor recoiled. It pulled back slightly, its form destabilizing for a brief moment. Kale exhaled slowly, so it can be hurt. But then, the Emperor adapted. Its body shifted, reshaping, evolving in real time. The damaged areas sealed instantly, stronger than before. "It's learning again," Kale said. The core entity didn't hesitate. It attacked again, faster, stronger, more precise. And this time, the Emperor didn't block. It absorbed. The energy disappeared into its form, fueling it, amplifying its presence. "Sir," an officer whispered, fear creeping into his voice. "They're not fighting to destroy each other." Kale understood instantly. They're evolving. Each attack, each defense, each moment of contact was making them stronger, and Earth was their battlefield. Suddenly, alarm screamed again. Multiple Empire reinforcements entering the system. "Containment fleet, what's left of it, is retreating." Kale looked at the screen. Human ships were still there. Small, fragile, insignificant, caught between gods. He turned to his crew. "If we stay here..." He paused. "We don't survive this." Silence. "Then what do we do?" someone asked. Kale looked at Earth, at the core entity, at the Emperor, and made a decision. "We change the battlefield. Because if humanity couldn't win this war, they would rewrite it." Change the battlefield? The words hung in the air like a final gamble. Inside Orbital Command, every officer turned toward Admiral Calveron, half shocked, half desperate for anything that sounded like a plan. "How?" one of them asked. "We can't even touch those things." Kale didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the live feed, at the Emperor, adapting with every strike, at the core entity, responding with equal force. Two unstoppable powers, growing stronger by the second. "They're feeding each other," Kale said finally. The room went quiet. "What do you mean, sir?" "Every attack, every counter. It's not weakening them. It's teaching them." He pointed at the screen. "Look, their responses are faster now, more efficient, less waste. They're learning in real time." "So what's the plan?" the officer asked again, more urgently this time. Kale took a breath. "We stop them from learning." Silence, then confusion. "That's not possible." Kale turned. "It is if we remove the battlefield." No one spoke, because now they understood. "You're not serious," someone whispered. Kale looked back at Earth. "If they keep fighting here, the planet won't survive." The realization hit all at once. "You want to move them?" "How do we move something that size?" "That's insane." Kale didn't argue. He simply said, "We don't move them." Pause. "We move ourselves." The room froze. "Sir, Earth can't be moved." Kale shook his head. "Not the planet." His eyes locked onto the core entity, the source. Across the system, the battle intensified. The Emperor unleashed another wave of void energy, wider, stronger, more destructive. The core entity countered instantly, creating a barrier that bent space around it. The impact alone sent shock waves through the atmosphere. Cities collapsed. Oceans surged. Time was running out. Back in command, Kale activated a hidden interface, a classified system, locked behind levels of authorization no one else in the room had ever seen. "What is that?" an officer asked. Cale didn't look away. "Last resort." The screen lit up with a single label. Project Gravity Well. Gasps filled the room. That's theoretical. It was never completed. It could tear the planet apart. Cale nodded. "Yes." Silence. "But it can also do one thing nothing else can." He turned to them. "It can pull anything." Understanding hit like a shockwave. "You're going to drag them out of Earth's orbit." Cale's voice dropped. "No." He looked at the distant stars. "I'm going to drag them into something worse." Above, the Emperor and the core entity clashed again. Energy and darkness tore through space. Reality itself struggled to hold together. Cale entered the final command. Target locked. Coordinates set beyond map space. Unknown region. The officer hesitated. "Sir, if this goes wrong." Cale didn't let him finish. "It already has." He placed his hand on the activation panel. "For humanity," and pressed it. Space around Earth began to twist. A massive gravitational vortex formed, pulling everything inward. The Emperor reacted instantly. The core entity turned. For the first time, both forces noticed humanity. And then they were pulled into the unknown. The moment Cale activated the gravity well, everything broke. Space didn't bend this time. It collapsed. A massive vortex formed around Earth's orbit, tearing open a region that had no coordinates, no data, no known existence. Light twisted into spirals. Ships, human, alien, broken, were dragged helplessly toward its center. And at the heart of it all, the Emperor and the core entity. Stabilization failing. Gravity spiked beyond limits. "We're being pulled in two." Cale held onto the command console as the entire station shook violently. "Hold position," he shouted. But it wasn't a command anyone could follow, because nothing was under control anymore. Above, the Emperor reacted first. Its massive form expanded outward, resisting the pull. Darkness surged like a shield, trying to anchor itself to reality. But the vortex didn't care. It wasn't just gravity. It was something deeper. The core entity turned next. Its glowing form intensified, energy surging through its body. It raised both arms, attempting to counter the pull, stabilizing the space around it. For a moment, it worked. The vortex slowed. Hope flickered. Then, the unknown happened. The vortex changed. Its center opened wider, revealing something beyond. Not space. Not darkness. Something else. "What is that?" an officer whispered. Cale stared at the screen. For the first time in his life, he had no answer, because what they were looking at wasn't part of the galaxy. It was something outside it, a place where light didn't behave, where space didn't follow rules, where even the Emperor hesitated. "Yes," Cale whispered. "Feel it." The Emperor stopped resisting. Its eye focused on the vortex, on what lay beyond. Then, for the first time, it showed something new. Not anger, not dominance, uncertainty. The core entity reacted instantly. It understood. Whatever was beyond that vortex, even if it wasn't meant to exist there. The two forces turned toward each other one last time, not as enemies, but as rivals who suddenly shared the same realization. Then the pull intensified. Stronger, faster, unstoppable. The Emperor was dragged first. Its massive form stretched, distorted, pulled into the vortex as its dark energy tried and failed to resist. The core entity followed. Its glowing structure held longer, resisting with everything it had. But even it began to collapse inward. "Sir," an officer said quietly, "they're going in." Cale didn't move. Good. One by one, the impossible forces vanished, pulled into the unknown. And then, silence. The vortex collapsed. Space snapped back into place. Earth remained, damaged, broken, but alive. Inside orbital command, no one spoke for several seconds. Then finally, "Is it over?" Cale looked out at the stars, at the empty space where gods had just fought. Slowly, he shook his head. No, because deep beyond the galaxy, something had just received them. And whatever existed there had now been awakened. Kale turned away from the screen. This wasn't the end. A pause. It was an invitation.